The prevailing mood of Dune Part Two is overwhelming strangeness. That's not a criticism. Although there's no extraterrestrial intelligence in the world of Dune, the human beings we meet are stranger, and the context is far more alien than anything we see in Star Trek or Star Wars. Some science fiction is about the present, but the best is about ideas, and Dune Part 2 is full of them. Like its predecessor, it's not a direct allegory for any system of power that exists today. House Harkonnen and House Atreides don't neatly represent the United States. Comparisons between the Fremen and Muslims are frequent and shallow. Dune isn't about just one system, it's about human instincts to authority and religion. That subtext isn't apolitical, it's beyond politics. Villeneuve makes a movie not just about colonialism, but all structures of power, all empires, all messiahs, all at once. The familiar elements are here, so-called space Jesuses, prophetic visions, science that's indistinguishable from magic, and so forth. But they are so fresh as to feel completely new. There are a lot of popular movies that have a chosen one character, but none of them treat their chosen one with as much skepticism as this film. Dune trades the neat good versus evil posturing of lesser blockbusters for a morality teeming with questions that transcend plot and strike at the heart of human nature. The first film surprised me when Rebecca Ferguson's Lady Jessica survived the Harkonnen attack and proved to be a main character. She returns in one of the many incredible performances in this film. Dune Part 2 may be the first truly family-oriented space epic. Of course, a father and son are at the center of Star Wars, but only in the vaguest sense is that truly about the family. In this film, Lady Jessica plays a character that's more reminiscent of Lady Macbeth than Darth Vader, slyly manipulating the proceedings to her own purposes. Dune is a famously hard book to adapt, another unfilmable piece of literature, but Villeneuve masterfully transforms a dense text into pure cinema, rejecting the long exposition we'd expect from a lesser filmmaker for the magic of sound and image. Aside from one extended black and white infrared sequence taking place on the Harkonnen homeworld of Getty Prime, the film is shockingly realistic. There has simply never been a film that renders the fantastic so real. Rarely does a movie full of visual effects not immediately become dated, but the work here is spectacular, showing Arrakis with borderline photographic fidelity. Denis Villeneuve trades his impressionistic coloring, which was once a small trademark of his, for an almost verite approach that grounds the fantastical elements. The effect is a stunningly realistic image of the far future. The VFX here are as good as they have been in any film, and are used to such great effect, I'm confident to call them the finest ever put on screen. The sandworms, once thought and proven to be impossible to recreate visually, are breathtaking. One scene of sandworm riding explodes with such energy I was out of breath, even the second time I watched it. This is the rare film whose beautiful visuals don't do anything to shore up a lackluster story. Dune 2 is a dense, epic text, deeply concerned with humanity and its relationship with religion and the environment. What other film of this scope heart-wrenches so much about the position of its messiah? Luke Skywalker accepts this role willingly, so willingly that to question it would have been against the heart of the movie. Really, all great epic film protagonists accept their position or question it a little bit based purely off of their personal desire. But we believe Paul when he questions his own motives, when he hesitates to follow his destiny because he dreams it will result in a war with billions dead. We believe him. He wasn't even supposed to exist. The Bene Gesserit insiders consider him an abomination, and yet the Fremen see in him their savior. The prophecy that foretold his coming, which was implanted into the Fremen religion by the Bene Gesserit, has parallels to the Christ story, which are obvious to anyone who's familiar with it. Paul emerges, like Jesus, from a desert backwater to become symbolically the most important person in the universe. The movie is concerned deeply with deconstructing this myth. Dune Part 2 is the first film, especially the first blockbuster, to truly ponder the ontological position of its so-called chosen one. Like the first film, practically all of the action of the movie takes place in the desert, and yet its specificity is what makes it so grand. Where George Lucas saw a desert planet and turned it into a theme park with generic villainous tribes no more than bantha fodder, each and every person in the world of Dune is a real, breathing human being. In Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien imagined a fantastical prehistory of Europe, and in Dune, Frank Herbert imagined a future for humanity, 20,000 years in the future. The world of Dune is so incredible and strange it was considered unfilmable, and David Lynch proved that. But Villeneuve fulfills its promise, rendering on-screen a cinematic vision so complete you wish you were there. The film's director and co-screenwriter, Denis Villeneuve, has been clear that this is a continuation, not a sequel to the first film. And it's obvious from the opening moments of Dune Part Two that this is the movie that he was waiting to make. I was blown away by the imagination of Part One. This film makes it look tiny by comparison. Paul is maybe the Kwisatz Haderach, a messianic figure that the Bene Gesserit have been building towards for generations. It's easy to see Dune Part 2 as the culmination of a different goal, which began in 1977 with Star Wars, ran through Jurassic Park and the prequel trilogy, the Lord of the Rings films, all the way through the MCU and beyond. I was worried that the machinations of late-stage capitalism meant we would never get this kind of thoughtful, forceful blockbuster filmmaking ever again. Yet, here it is. Dune Part 2 is the apex of all blockbuster filmmaking that came before it in Hollywood. Maybe 1 or 2 movies every couple of years are labeled an instant classic as soon as you leave the movie theater. Dune Part 2 is the only film I've ever seen, the only film released in my lifetime that became an instant classic from its opening scene. If it wasn't clear before, Denis Villeneuve is on track to fulfill his destiny as one of the all-time great Hollywood filmmakers. This film is not simply the confident follow-up to a well-received blockbuster, it is a dense, philosophical masterwork, one of the finest sequels ever made, a monumental achievement of Hollywood, and is simply put, the greatest science fiction film of all time.